Hey everyone, welcome to Shifty's Club. Today I'm gonna talk about something I should have caught up on a while ago. I know it's been a while, and I'm not gonna go into this crappy Terra aisle, but the thing was, I've been working basically every single day, so and the times I haven't been working, I've been doing something to catch up on chores or something. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this up and get it in before we make it to states. Today's the Saturday before the first state championships start, and I wanted to cover everything I could. I know this is not really a metagame channel, it's just one of them how to beat with rogues and stuff, and I understand that. But the thing is, there's really no one out here discussing what's going to be popular and what to use and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So, with states coming up, people are wondering what decks are going to be used in next Destinies with the Harkle's Silver on set. So, in all reality, there's not going to be too many new decks that are forming. That'll be tier 1. Let's just put it that way. So, because what we got right now is basically Magnezone Electric. We've got CKE, which is Cobalion and Kyurem from Noble Victories with Electrode. We also have any kind of Typhlosion Reshiram or Emboar Reshiram, as we call them, Reshiboar or Reshiflosion. And all these decks will still have an impact because they've been out longer and people know how to run them and how to run them efficiently. And don't leave out the Durant deck, Ross deck. See, what else am I missing that's really, really good? Let's see, I guess you really can't count out Mega decks because people are still going to use that because it's still a very fast, very efficient way of attacking. So, Mega Magnezone, Mega King, some of those decks could still be potentially dangerous to try to go against. But what do we got new? Well, for new, we've got a deck called CMT. And those of you who do not know what it is, it's Celebi Prime with Tornadus and Mewtwo. Actually, Celebi, Mewtwo, Tornadus. So Celebi Prime, Mewtwo EX, and Tornadus. Now, how does this combo really work? Well, the way it works is basically you use Energy Acceleration with Celebi Prime using Sky Narrow Bridge and Switch to try to get as many grass energies as you can on your Pokemon. Now, most of the time you could be able to get 3 on a Tornadus, and the rest of the game use Celebi to start stockpiling them onto Mewtwo EX. So this way you could get a very fast setup and a very fast attack and be able to keep going on and on later and still have that high damage potential output. Most people make the mistake of trying to use Mewtwo EX first when they should be putting out Tornadus first and get it to going and let it start attacking for 80 consistently. Now, this might sound like a really strange idea, but it does work as far as the fast and consistency standpoint does. A real consistent deck could be found, not badly wrong. I heard from one of my sources that David Booge had won the European Cup with CMT, but like I said before, the decks can have luck runs. CMT is not the BDIF for the format. It is not going to be the best deck we have. There are too many ways to counter the CMT deck, and that is exactly why it will not reign as a BDIF. You have to be able to pursue your matchups correctly, and CMT just fails to do that if it can't get a good enough setup. And even then, it still might not even do it, even with a good setup. So, to say it for that point, CMT really is a good deck, but is not basically the BDIF. It's tier 1.5. Let me put it that way. And so, what else is there really that can really benefit in this game? Well, most people would realize that Amoonguss came out and could be highly effective. But what they don't know is that most Stage 1 decks probably already thought of taking in an Amoonguss, and if you run Stage 1, this could be the best situation, or one of the best choices you made in your life, is taking a 1/1 Amoonguss into your Stage 1 deck, just for when you need those stat ailments or stats inflictions that you need on your opponent, or in trading card games it becomes special conditions. Although I'm used to playing the video game a lot, so but that's basically what it is. Most of those Stage 1 decks that we see will take in the Amoonguss just to get that poison or confuse, or even both if they really needed it. But most of them just take it in instead of a Kingdra to give them that one damage counter that they need to knock you out. If they can't get it with plus powers and stuff, then they always get that 1/1 Amoonguss and try to either like catcher, Amoonguss lock you combo, or something like that. Now, there are plenty of other things. I can't go too far into detail, but I'll get to as many as I can. Reshiram EX, that's pretty good. Reshiram EX with Typhlosion Prime or Emboar will definitely make an impact. And even paired with Mewtwo also could be a pretty good threat as far as Emboar and Typhlosion decks that already run Reshiram use the Reshiram EX, and then even maybe Mewtwo EX. So there you go, you're having so much energy acceleration and trying to get this combo to going. So is it worth it? Probably, but only testing will show. And of course, some people have probably already, I know, thought of these combos, but most of them really haven't. Zekrom EX, I can't go too far into detail with that because it's really not the thing that we're looking for as far as anything goes, but I prefer in like a ZPTS or something like that, where it's Zekrom Pachirisu Tornadus Shaman deck, I prefer to take in a Zapdos from the next Destinies instead of Zekrom EX, or I'd choose Zapdos over 3 or 4 Tornadus. I'd put maybe 1 Tornadus and the rest Zapdos just for that lightning resistant matchup, such as like Donphan. Now, but that's just my own opinion about it, and most people are going to find out what theirs is. Kyurem EX, pretty good solid strategy, along with Feraligatr, or even the cake decks such as the Electro Prime variants are going to start using 1 Kyurem EX if not 2. And the reason for this is to get rid of your opponent's energy fast and efficient early game. Setting that 1 Kyurem EX is going to do wonders for their parties, and or their decks. And just for that one reason, you're really going to slow their setup, because if they can't get that energy onto attack, then they're pretty much going to lose the game. But the thing is, like CMT decks, you pretty much have to use something like Pinsir, which like flips 2 coins, and then use a Victini to reflip or something to get lucky and get every one of those energy off of the Pokemon. So sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. You just got to figure out what set strategy works for you. And being able to look and see what your opponent does by turn 2 really does help see if you need Kyurem EX or not in your CKE deck, if that's what you're using. Mewtwo EX, there's a variety of decks Mewtwo EX will fit in. Well, number 1 is the CMT deck, like I said, or just CM. Celebi Mewtwo, or the Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus, if you really wanted that, because Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus would obviously give you a better matchup against another Mewtwo EX variant deck. And most Rishi-born, Rishi-Flosion decks already run a Mewtwo EX to counter another's Mewtwo EX. So that's really gonna depend. Excuse me. The next deck is Gardevoir from the next Destinies, along with Mewtwo EX. And what this does is every basic psychic energy you attach to Mewtwo EX, or any Pokemon period, would go from counting as 1 psychic energy to 2 psychic energy. But it's only for basic energy, so that's the only drawback. So you can't use like CKE to stockpile all these Prism and Rainbow energies on your Pokemon. And that's going to be pretty much the best part about Gardevoir, is being able to be used in one of the most hyped Pokemon cards out there, Mewtwo EX. And one more I want to get into from Next Destinies as far as Pokemon is Regigigas EX. Now, Regigigas EX is the heart and soul of Ross decks now, or the truth, if you want to call it that. But basically what happens is Regigigas EX uses Reuniclus's damage swap ability to basically give it the correct amount of damage output it needs to KO the defending Pokemon or do whatever it needs to get the job done. Now, obviously, this is going to require very slow setup or some very fast consistency cards to work with Vileplume, which is almost near impossible. You would literally have to use like Smeargle along with Skynarrow Bridge for this to work, but even then, you still wouldn't have that really good of a chance. So most Ross decks that run right now probably are better off just taking out maybe one Zekrom or even another Zekrom or Reshiram and putting in one or two Regigigas EX. And the best part about this is it can benefit from double colorless energy, just like Zekrom and Reshiram can. And while Donphan is very good and very consistent with this, I would probably prefer to do away with Donphan in my certain limited of the deck and go for Regigigas EX and Zekrom, Reshiram aside, and maybe Kyurem for the Fire-type matchups. So that's just my standpoint. For most of the decks you should, or most of the cards you'll see a lot of. What cards will you not see a lot of? Well, Cinccino, I highly doubt it. The ability, if an opponent attacks you for damage, flip a coin. If heads, I believe it's head, I'm not sure. Dang it, I forgot. Basically, you flip a coin, and if it's the correct face, then you prevent all damage done to Cinccino, which is pretty cool. And once you use its first attack for 50, every other turn you're going to be doing 100 instead, so that's pretty cool. But the problem is people are going to keep catching up another Pokemon over and over and over, and you'll never get to keep that same standpoint. What other Pokemon we see, or maybe not see? Darmanitan. Darmanitan has a Senko draw, which allows it to reshuffle and draw as many as you have, or your opponent has. And the last attack is basically flip a coin for each energy attached to Darmanitan, and for each head it does 50 damage. For each head it does 50 damage. So that's pretty good and pretty bad depending on the way you look at it. It's basically Executor, only a little more bulky, but a lot less efficient due to Executor's energy pickup attack. Being able to get 2 energy back onto Executor really helps it a lot more than Darmanitan, but you do have Gardevoir for Darmanitan. But you also do for Executor as well, so you won't see it as much, but you could possibly see a Guardy Executor Bron or Darmanitan deck. Other decks that you could possibly see in is Vanillux, Vileplume, Victini, along with the Vanillux from the Next Destiny set. Now, why the one from Next Destinies? Well, because when you have it on the bench, you can basically do a switch every time. And basically from this standpoint, you just switch out whatever Pokemon you want in case your opponent pulls some really tricky move on you. And there's really nothing they can do. I mean, even if they use something like Bellsprout or one of these new Pokemon that just out of the blue just switches you just straight like a catcher, then because of Vileplume, or if you can't find Vileplume, it's a really good addition to early game. So that's pretty much decks that you won't see a lot of, but do beware out for it. There's a couple more that I'd like to get to. One is the Arcanine whenever Arcanine is hit by damage from an attack and the defending Pokemon is burned. So this is a way for your opponent to be very cautious and have to snipe around Arcanine, or catcher around it. So some of these decks might see play, but moreover for the junior and senior division based on these requisites. The next one, and probably the last one I want to talk about, is the Shaman EX. Is not going to be as popular, but do beware out for it late game. Some CMT decks will use Shaman EX for this purpose, because if they cannot, if it comes down really close game, attach and get to Shaman, and then attack for as many price cards as your opponent's taken times 30. So that's actually a pretty good attack if you can get those catchers off and get it going. What decks will we probably not see, or what decks have emerged thanks to the new cards in the set that are roguish? Well, you're asking the right person, and here's the decks that I've compiled already. One of the best decks, and in my opinion pretty good deck, is either or Ambipom or Persian. Ambipom being from the Triumphant set, and Persian being from Heart Gold Soul Silver. About maybe 3 of those, and 1 from Next Destinies, due to its nasty plot attack. And either one of those, along with Weavile from Undaunted and Slowking from Heart Gold Soul Silver or Call of Legends. And obviously you would use the Slowpoke from Undaunted, and the Sneasel from Undaunted, the Apom from Triumphant, not the one from Unleashed just because it can move an energy, but rather because the one from Triumphant, Apom, allows you to draw cards, so it's pretty good. And the Sneasel get free retreat, so that's pretty good. So the deck usually, if ran with Persian, would use Victini. And what this does is Persian would flip 3 coins, and for each heads would choose a card from your opponent's hand without looking and discard it. Ambipoms would allow you to choose 2, exactly 2, without any chance or anything, but they shuffle into your opponent's deck and you don't discard them. That's the bad part. But people prefer that they can get to do 60 and discard 2 cards from their hand outright. But I like Persian a lot better. Plus you can use the Good Meowth from the Noble Victories, the shiny Meowth. And most people would say it's not the best one, but in my through all my deck playing and deck testing with this, it is the best one. The next one could be either or. This is Bronzong from Next Destinies with Vileplume. Now, how would this work? Well, basically what Bronzong does, it has an ability that doesn't allow healing. You cannot heal any damage counters, but you can move them, but you can't remove them, but you can move them. So that is basically one of the best abilities to be paired with Trainer Lock. And it gets even better. Bronzong's attack does 30 damage plus 10 more for each card in your opponent's hand. That means that their hand is usually going to be compiled with a bunch of useless trainers that they can't get rid of, and you could probably more than likely win the game. And the only downside is that it takes a metal and 2 colorless, or in my standpoint, 1 metal and a double colorless, 2 energy cards to take it off. But sometimes you'd have to go with the 3, but I've done this before. I've tested this deck. Is just a beast if you run it right. And any other decks I can think of? You bet. Where should I start? Let's see. Oh yeah, forgot. You guys probably haven't heard of, or well, you probably have, but this is the new revised Metagross deck from the Unleashed. Remember that Pokemon Metagross I've been hyping all this time and how good it is in the Rogue metagame? Well, technically it's not Rogue metagame, but it's the Rogue style of playing. Metagross really does work because every Pokemon with a psychic energy attached on your side of the field would have free retreat calls, which is amazing because your opponent couldn't catch her up and stall. They would have to knock out Metagross first, which is a real problem with the exception of EX Pokemon. And because they take so many energy to set up an attack, you could easily catch up something with no energy and then keep doing 240 damage snipes each turn. Now, the way this gets better is because we have a new partner, Gardevoir. And what this one would do is obviously make every psychic energy attached to Metagross count as 2. So instead of that double colorless, one psychic counts as 2, and we attach another psychic. Instead of 3 psychic, we get 2 psychic, and there you go. You have now just set up in basically 2 turns because you still couldn't, even with rare candy. You couldn't set up on turn 1. You could probably set on turn 2. So you'd have time for Muck if you wanted, and then Metagross, or you could play it out with a catcher. And that's basically what this deck does. And I don't really got any more good decks for you. I just advise that you do a lot of testing before, and yes, there is enough time in 1 week where you can test enough to get used to a deck. And how do I know? Well, let's just say you've got the Pokemon Trading Card Game online. You have Red Shark if you cannot get the cards on the PTCGO, and you also have the option of going to a league and playing against other fellow competitors. And that's basically all I got for you guys today. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Post any comments you have in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Now, shift these clothes.